This meeting is being recorded.
You're being recorded, Candice. Anyway, so and how that then impacts leadership development. So discipleship, leadership development, and so give us a little bit of your story. You've been at this thing called leading your dream team now for a number of years, and tell us your kind of ministry story, Candice.
Sure. I actually come from everywhere but ministry. I think I talked about this to the group last time. I worked in the corporate world. I actually went to business school. God called me into ministry when I was 15, and so I went to business school instead. But after that, I started a couple of businesses and ran those firms for about 13 years. And then my husband and I had 2 kids, and we decided we were going to adopt a teenager because that sounded fun with 2 toddlers. So that really didn't work with running a few businesses. So we made a move geographically to a different, smaller town, and I sold those firms and really focused on that for a couple of years. And in that time, I had been serving with a couple of ministries, starting up some women's ministries that did kind of like a young adult, teenage girl kind of leadership course. And in that, I started serving at Freedom. And then before I knew it, I was serving here 30, 40 hours a week and just loving every second. And when I was offered a position on staff, I never anticipated that. I was like the one person that was called in and offered a job going, but I'm here. Like, I mean, we don't need to change anything. So it's really funny how God works, and I will tell you that you'll see this as you develop leaders too, because I went through the experience of being a dream team, which is our volunteer, a dream team member for 2 years, to then move on to staff. And the bonus to that was I understood the culture already. I understood preferences. I understood, the vision on a different level coming in. So while I didn't know the ins and outs in the day-to-day of being a church staffer, a ministry staffer, and someone in the vocational side, the parts of community that mattered most were implanted in me at that point, which is a really cool way I think God did it for me. And then the role I have now, I started in small groups and grew that a little bit. And then then I went to lead engagement, and engagement for us is guest services, missions, and small groups. And then I went into leadership development in 2019. Our church really started doing leadership pipeline with Mac Lake and using his material and building some new structures as we grew. And just this past week, I've taken so I was leadership development pastor. I was ordained in that role. And this past week, I've transitioned into a role on keeping leadership development, but now I'm one of our executive pastors, and I'm over all of our ministries programs. So, which really handles most of our volunteer base. So it's kind of a cool relationship how that all that synergy worked. So yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Freedom is, I mean, who knows, post-COVID, it's a community, 3,000 kind of thing. Is that, who knows?
Yeah, I feel like we all laugh about numbers these days in the church world, right? We have like this many people online and this many people in person, and we are in the Wild West of South Carolina, as I like to call it, in COVID land. So we didn't close for very long, but we have a decent sized membership that's still a part of our online experience. We've decided as a church, identity wise, that we do our best work in person. So we haven't invested in a ton of stream equipment. Now we're putting every special experience online. We have a couple of small groups that meet virtually, but we are not putting our financial base and our attention as far as labor efforts into that piece, because we find the most value comes out of families being here in the building and in person in small groups. So that's just an identity decision we've made in recent history. So that's kind of nice, because we do find that so the past 6 months, we started seeing people coming back, but really like the past 2 was we launch our small group semester. We do a semester schedule. So as the fall groups are launching, we're really seeing like heavy return rates. Leaders coming back for the first time that we haven't seen in 2 years, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, it's wild. That's helpful. Can you tell us the big why at Freedom right now? How do you articulate? You say you understand the vision, where you're going. How do you articulate it?
So our vision is to reach people far from God, but close to each of us and help them find freedom in Christ. So you will see that vision planted at the top of every role description, every initiative we do, even when it comes to our financial decisions on events, are we ministering to a large group of people who already are believers and walking in their faith when we spend this amount of money, or is it going to reach a larger audience? So those financial decisions on what money we're putting into what buckets are even directed by that vision. And the same goes for our dream team. So when they're changing a diaper, are they just changing a diaper, or are they allowing a mom and dad who don't know Jesus to have a confrontation in the worship experience where they know their kids being loved, so they feel safe and they feel open and they can learn something and connect with God in a new way? So that's where vision comes into our leadership development. It's more than just the task.
Yeah, that's awesome. Have you gotten specific on like stretch goals? Do you have any other campus aspirations or microsite kind of, yeah, numbers with us a little bit?
Really, I mean, we're growing rapidly. I think last time we talked, I told you we doubled our building square footage in 2020, which is a super smart building decision, everyone. But that ship had already sailed. So now we're focusing on filling it. And I will tell you, the record growth we're seeing is in our kids' area. So the amount of families we have on a Sunday, we're seeing before COVID, we were seeing about 180 kids on a Sunday experience, and we're averaging 263, 270 in just children's. So it's really, I think families are trying to find structured ways to get their kids back out and engage, and providing a safe environment it's become so much more. I mean, we were always kind of a family oriented church, but now we're really seeing rapid growth there.
So good. Can you tell us about how you articulate discipleship and leadership development? How do you distinguish or not?
We don't. So that's, and I don't know if I talked about this when we were together before talking, but we equate discipleship and leadership development here. And I think that is where we're really starting to see a difference in who's engaged in leadership and serving in those areas. So we have long said leadership development and discipleship are the same thing. When you look at what Jesus did in the New Testament to disciple, he taught lessons that were leadership lessons. And it's very scriptural, but also what we see when we start to teach those things is, so mom is serving here and she's getting feedback and development training, and she's getting encouragement, and she's getting follow-up, kind of like it's a healthy workplace, right? But she's taking those same encouragement lessons and she's learning to change her language to be life-giving with her children. She's able to take that development and that leadership and turn it into ways that she can go for a new job or a promotion at work. And one thing I've been diving into probably for the past year is we're looking at the Great Resignation, right? And there's jobs everywhere. We have the highest retirement rates we've ever seen. And some of the people we haven't been able to reach because things have been okay, now have an opportunity where they can grow in church. They're going to spiritually get discipled. And the bonus effect for them is that they're able to take those same leadership skills and apply them at home, in parenting, in their marriage, and in the workplace, which is ultimately what they wanted to happen. There wasn't supposed to be this great separation. And I think that's kind of a thing that we're seeing now is we're seeing business owners who maybe came once a month because they're stressed about running the business. Now they're there every Sunday. We had a prayer night Monday night, and there's a merger happening. There's a business owner that's buying another business. He brought his partner to prayer night to pray with him because he's been in all of our leadership stuff, and he knows now, if I establish this now, I don't have to fight to get it in there. This is how the relationship is established. I never anticipated that side effect, and it's been really cool.
Cool. Can you tell us what is the freedom pathway from, first time they interact with you all the way to becoming, a director on your team? Can you just walk us through that? Because we talk a lot about serve, lead, coach, direct, and we're very well aware of that. But what is your pre-serve, lead, coach, direct, pre-dream team experience look like at Freedom? How do you
walking in the door kind of scenario? Yeah.
Walking in the door to become becoming a part of the community and then moving into service. Yeah.
So we know statistically that most people decide before they enter your front door if they're coming back again in the church world, right? So really the heaviest presence we have comes in our parking and outside teams. When you're walking up to the building, and here's the funny thing, if you don't know what freedom looks like, you can Google it. We're essentially like a giant stainless steel barn. It makes no sense. So you don't know what you're walking into. We're totally that church. So really a personal presence outside has become really important to us. So we have a golf cart team, we have a parking team, we're doing all the things. We have, of course, turn your flashers on if you're a first time guest to park, but a lot of people don't want to be seen like that.
Right.
So they will do that. So one thing we teach our teams is to just be friendly to everyone and to engage with Q&A. So in addition to having like greeters who open doors, we specifically set apart a first time guest team. So there are people that love to smile, love to shake hands, love to do those things, but maybe they can't conversationally engage. We have a whole separate group of people that start on our patio and are right inside the door, specifically there to meet you and to stick with you all the way through kids check-in and into the worship center. So that's something that we used to kind of lump all those people in together, and we learned that some people are more conversational than others. With that, we promote getting their information in a couple of different ways. So we have obviously the old school like card they can fill out, right? So there's paper everywhere still, but we also have a QR code. We also have we put all the highlight reel of kind of next steps to join community on one page on our website. So instead of having like a small group page over here, a missions page over here, you have all of those, but we just have one page called next steps that like a bunch of hyperlinks are on that are kind of the hot links for new engagement. And we will put those on social media through the QR, through our help desk. Our help desk teams, additionally, after the worship experience, we always start our worship experiences with welcoming guests and first-time guests. So we're going to do corporate prayer together. We're going to worship together, but we start the day with thank you so much for choosing to worship with us. And we use that language throughout. This is home. We want you to feel at home. We want to connect. We want to connect with you. We never say we want to get your information. We don't even push like we have a gift for you. It's we want to get to know you, and we want to help you find people that you want to get to know as well.
Nice. So
postcard and a follow up within 24 hours every time.
Postcard within 24. Yeah.
Sorry.
That's amazing. No. Can you say some of your first steps and how those first steps then lead toward becoming a part of the dream team, which is your leadership development kind of starting point, right?
Yes. Oh, I didn't even get to like all the good parts. I'm sorry. We have a newcomers class that we really push for people to come in, because I think one thing, if you've been in the church, you want to know what the church's belief system is and make sure that matches your values. And then if you've not been in the church, a lot of times people are coming in and they either have a hurt they're trying to work through, they need people, or they're really investigating what this whole belief thing means. So we find that a newcomers class type environment is the best way to do that. Now we do that in one session. We used to do like a couple of Sundays in a row, but in this environment, we find people kind of want the fast food version. So we have a class where it's more set up like a luncheon. We do it at the end of both of our worship experiences. At the end of the day, we feed them, and every staffer, and or if the staffer can't be there, one of their coaches or a couple of their coaches need to be a part of that experience. So we have our engagement director leading it from the front, Mike and his team, but also at each table, we'll have a coach or leader from different areas so they can ask questions about their personal stories. At the tables, they share their testimonies, which I think is really important. Sometimes we're like, let's plug you in right away, and we don't know anything about them. So they use that time to really share and connect. And at the end, we want to see them take the next steps. Over that first month, we want to see them either join a small group or join a serve team. And really, either one is fine. Preferentially, we want to see them in a small group first, because new statistical analysis shows that people who are pouring out through serving but not being poured into in some sort of spiritual growth are, I want to say, 9 times more likely to leave a church within a year because they get burnt out. So we will focus on small group community first and then layer in serving. It doesn't always happen, especially with men. I will tell you, we watch men will engage in serving a lot more often for their first step than small groups.
That's awesome.
They want to do
One of those two that make that choice, and then talk to us about entering into Dream Team and how you move people through your servant leadership pathway. We're also, this is a lot of Mac Lake stuff, and love to just get your.
I was gonna say it totally is. You've probably seen ours because I know it's in our shared file, but we call ours the free process. So we find, recruit, engage, and equip. So F is find. It's easy when you have a name like Freedom to make acronyms, guys. So F is find. So really, though, everybody in leadership and everybody on the Dream Team should be looking out for those people who naturally do it. Our first time guest team, everybody on that team was somebody who we watched and said, gosh, you talk to everybody the second you walk in the door. You are the mayor of this place. Let's go ahead and make it official. So that's the find piece. Recruit is the conversation itself. Engaging, equipping is the training. So we have a role description for every volunteer position, and we're going to sit down and go over it with them one-on-one. And at the Dream Team member level, I don't think it doesn't need to be a staffer. I think sometimes we think the staffer has to do everything, but your great leaders want the ownership. So don't say no for them. We tend to do that. I can't burden them with this. They want you out of the picture in some level. Let them do it. So with team members, leaders, our coaches can go over that. And then engaging them is really getting them out there and serving alongside a trainer and helping them just model it. So we have this role description. It tells them kind of where they're running towards. We're just going to point them in the right direction. But then it all comes down to moving and watching, observing the trainer. So every little detail doesn't matter. Sometimes we bog people down with manuals, especially in areas like kids, areas like youth, where there's a lot of security stuff. We can teach them that and provide them the manual, but really what you want them to do is be beside someone who does it excellently and is going to say, did you see how I did that? So with that training, we have a card, win cards. I don't know if y'all are using Mac's win cards. We made our own because we started it before Mac had those. And now some of my teams have actually transitioned to Mac's because his are so great. But we have the wins and we do the review on training, and I am not going to sit here and lie to you and say every team knows it with excellence because, we leak, we're human. But the best, most successful teams I see keep the training on the ground and very relational.
Are you using the leading others, leading leaders, that curriculum? How do you?
We're using both of those. We wrote huddles. And so I think teaching your teams to write them themselves one time in case there's a specific topic they want to cover outside of those is really important. So we've used Mac stuff, we've written huddles, and we've even written huddles out of the books to ramp up a team rapidly. So coming out of COVID, when you've got 30 to 40% new people in some organizations, we've taken some of the chapters of the book and made it a huddle and then said, okay, now go read actually the rest of the chapter, but we've gotten to discuss it together and keep you moving. So we've layered in a couple of I always talk to Mac before I do it. He's like, okay, here we go. We're going to try it. But he lets me guinea pig it enough. But we've also layered in something we call Leadership Advanced. And so twice a month, I'll do a classroom style meeting on Sundays. We have 2 worship experiences. So I just do it twice a month so I can offer it at different times. We're going through chapter by chapter. We're doing leading others first and then leading leaders, because then it frees the teams up to keep the pace. So if they're on chapter 6 with a group of 3 people, they don't have to go back to the beginning with someone new. That person can come spend some time with us and kind of get caught up. So it's something we've tried. It seems to be working really well. And the other thing I'm finding is if you have some leaders who've been in it for 30 years in the game and they're going, I already know what I need to know, they're kind of open to coming to this Leadership Advance because they feel like they can be the wisdom in the room, but then they end up finding they're more vulnerable in there because everybody is coming in going, okay, but I have this small group member who talked about X, Y, and Z, and I don't know what to do. And they're able to encourage, but then they end up sharing more vulnerably. So we're just trying a couple of different things right now. That's
really good. What about coaches? How are coaches used at Freedom?
They're for survival. But so when it comes to every area uses them a little bit differently. In kids, it's great because, like I said, we have multiple experiences, and we require our staff to participate as a church member in the worship experience at least one a day. So every Sunday, you've got one you've got to sit, you've got one you serve, and we always tell everybody on our dream team and staff, you serve one, you sit one. Now, we sit with one eye open. We know how that goes, right? But with our kids teams, it's really cool because when you're talking about room numbers and safety, the coaches come in alongside of our kids staff, and they're able to kind of be a part of leading that process, checking on rooms. I think the biggest thing that happens in some areas like kids when it comes to security is the gut is the coach is going to go into a room when somebody calls out. And we fight that tooth and nail here. So we build a sub list. We will combine rooms if numbers work versus putting a coach in a room because we need them to do the care.
That's awesome. So they're doing discipleship, basically. Your coaches
Yeah.
are your disciplers of your leaders.
Yeah, and there's nothing that fills me up more than like walking around during youth on Wednesday night. So our youth group is massive. They take over our entire building. They have their own worship experience on Wednesday nights, and we have coaches now. With the rapid growth we're seeing there, we have leaders, who want to lead a small group, but they're not fully equipped. If you haven't led a small group before and you're willing, that's great. But we're going to partner with them, someone with them who's been doing it a while, but also the coach really comes in there. So with small group environments and environments like youth and kids, it's awesome because the coach will be able to kind of make the rounds. And this week I'm going to sit in this room and observe and give you feedback. And next week I'm going to be in this other one, but I can always come back if you need me twice in a row. And with small groups, it's the same thing. Right now we're ramping up to launch our semester in a couple of weeks, and coaches are critical because we can't communicate with, I think we're going to have a little over 200 small group leaders. Now they're co-leading most of the time. So about 100 small groups or so, but we can't care for that. So we need the coaches to do that part, to communicate the ins and outs. They do their huddles. We don't do a big meeting with all the small group leaders and teach them a leadership competency. We're going to do it with the coaches, and then the coaches are going to go do it with their leaders. They're going to do it over dinner, and they're going to connect with them, and all the things we can't do, they're going to do on a smaller scale.
So good. Last question for me, and then we'll turn it to the group here. I'm sure there's a lot. What do you like? Take yourself, Candice, back 3-5 years, because a lot of what you just shared with us is a lot of work, a lot of intentionality, a lot of development. So what do you say to maybe someone here who's like, this is very overwhelming? I hear you using a lot of language, and I don't really have the context necessarily for all of this. Take yourself back. What words of wisdom do you tell yourself, 5 years ago or so, to say, it's going to be okay. Just take the right next step. Don't stop moving.
I think it's important to share how I got here for anyone that's like trying to figure out where to begin. And Matt gets really excited too. And we always talk about that. He's always like, and all these things. And I'm like, we're not there yet. Wait a second. But he kept me going, honestly. But when I came in, I was over small groups. I was here for a month, and we had a staffing change for a new church plant. And overnight, I took over those 3 areas. So overnight, I went from, 30 small groups, 30 to 50 small groups that I was leading in a part-time role to, I think I had 189 leaders or teams that reported to me, 189 teams overnight. So that's not even with established leaders on all of those teams. So when I say I understand, I want to give that perspective that I understand. With that, what I found was I picked one team, one area of ministry. And for me, it was small groups, because that's where most of the church care comes in, is in your Bible studies. That's where people are doing the most life change. They're the most vulnerable. They're learning scripture. So for me, that's where I started. And I would encourage everyone, start with one team, start with one ministry area, and really give yourself a lab to work in. And I met with those leaders. We talked about what their roles would look like. And I also said out loud, hey, permission to tell me like these 5 things are wrong. at the end of the semester, or permission to tell me we need to do something differently. And our small group coaches is one area where we didn't get it right the first time. We removed them from groups completely and really encourage them to become a small group while they coach these other leaders. And what we do differently now is we found that those coaches are best when they're attending a small group or leading a small group and caring for 2 or 3 other sets of leaders. And that's something we learned from doing it wrong the first time. And I mean, wrong, I guess, not best. But that would be my first piece of advice is pick an area where your team is hungry, where they're excited to grow, and focus on building that one area. Pick one person that you're going to pour into and really get things right and build on that person. On the mission side, here's the crazy part. The day before the world shut down, March 15th, I had a meeting where I established 5 missions leaders over 5 different areas and 1 coach. And we had the meeting, we went over their job descriptions. The very next day, schools closed, and I got a phone call from Berkeley County Schools that they couldn't feed the kids who were on assisted meals. And there was no food bank in Berkeley County at the time. Those 5 leaders got established the day before, but they got trial by fire. But here's the thing. We had already told them how much ownership they could have. We told them how far down the road they could run. We went over budget. So start to include people as early as you can and pick one area that you're going to work on and make it excellent. Now that missions coach is teaching the leadership advances, and I'm sitting in and just watching her run with the ball. But I do say that to say, like, it's a long road, and you will have teams in your organization that say, we're creative, so it doesn't work for us, or we're this, so it doesn't work for us, or we have legal things we have to go through, so it doesn't work for us. It's not true, but you've got to find a way. You've got to start with one team and get it balanced.
That's great. Thank you, Candice. I love your energy and expertise. What are we hearing? What's sticking? What questions do we have for Candice? Do you guys have a school connected?
We have a preschool.
Okay.
And we run this there.
Yeah, go ahead. Do you use this kind of stuff in the preschool development as well?
Yeah, I think it's actually important to point out too, when you start doing this with your dream team areas, when you start doing this with volunteer roles, you're going to find that you might want to adjust your organizational structure. So, but that's probably a year in. So be comfortable if you build tension, like if you start doing something over here and your volunteers get great and they're like challenging some things in healthy ways, like why don't we have a best practice for this, or a way that we do this, or what do we do when this comes up? That's an indication that like it's time to start doing some different things organizationally on the staff side. And that's really a lot of our reorg that we've been doing over the past year has been the outcome of these dream team leaders growing and saying, hey, we should try this way. And we're like, oh, we totally should. So you'll start to see it impact other areas kind of in reverse, and that's okay.
Cool. Thank you.
Candice, I'll ask a question here. Jack
Yeah.
Caliber.
Hey.
So how you doing? So what was your biggest personal struggle getting into leadership development? Where did you find kind of the hardest part that you had to struggle to kind of work through?
Well, I think it's like any form of discipleship is when you see so much in someone and then maybe it doesn't turn out the way you want. And I think if you've done pastoral care, if you've walked somebody through life change, if you've done marriage counseling or any of those things, then you always can see the best outcome, and you don't always have that best outcome where someone is all in on something. So know that that's okay. And you still planted a seed. I think, biblically, we're called to just be obedient. We can't worry about the outcomes all the time, but that's ultimately what we want to do all the time. Success isn't measured by that in God's eyes. Like he just wants you to be obedient in the steps he's directing you into.
So sometimes the relationship's not going to pan out the way that you hope it to, and just be okay
It
with
won't.
that.
And sometimes somebody will seem super organized and then they're like not going to communicate with their team at all, and you're beating your head against the wall. So know that tension and feel that tension out, but don't shy away from the conversation. have the conversation and see if maybe they're not the right fit or it's not the right time. That's all part of ministry. But I think that's the hardest thing is when you can see like, oh my gosh, I can see these leaders and I can see what they can do. And some latch on and some don't.
Let me ask, I've asked this scenario a few times for folks. What if somebody comes into your community and they've already got a history of being a really high capacity leader? So they're already envisioning themselves maybe being kind of operating at a higher level. How do you walk with somebody that's doing that kind of says, maybe you ought to slot me in at a higher level?
Yeah. Yeah, I joke about it being the Jesus resume. Like you walk in with your Jesus resume and you're like, here are all the things I've done. And you're like, so anyway, yeah, that happens all the time in the church. And I think one thing that we always look for is a servant's heart. And with that servant's heart, sometimes somebody will come in with kind of a perception that they need to be in a different role. And when we talk about volunteers, we're very careful to use language about like dream team and care and honor. And really we have, core competencies. Honor is the first one we always talk about, because if you're coming in with a servant's heart and you're honoring everyone, we don't see coaches as higher than leaders. They just fulfill different shoes and roles. And whenever I hear somebody say that, that's one thing I'm actually quick to correct. And one thing I'm actually quick to encourage the staff to correct with people. And it doesn't mean they always stick around, because it's not a culture we can allow to get a foot in the door. So this Sunday, somebody approached me in the lobby and they're like, hey, I want you to know my wife is highly underutilized in the role she's in. And I think you should think about that, because she's not as high up as these people over here, and they're newer to the church. And we talked about what she was doing. She's actually going to lead a small group, which is like amazing and super hard, especially in this season. People are working through so many things. And I said simply, what are her giftings and what is she asked to do? Where has she asked to serve? And his answer was, she's asked to lead a small group. And I was like, it sounds like she's right where she needs to be. And we're excited to have her there.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people are waiting on like the promotion too, and we should definitely have the ICNU conversations, but that doesn't mean we speed somebody along, because that's also can be very dangerous in the church.
Great. Other questions? Things that would be helpful?
She had mentioned serve one, sit one with staff. Is that?
Serve one, sit one. When you're talking Sundays with your dream team, so yeah, they serve 1 hour where they have 2 different worship hours. Mm-hmm. We want you to actually worship, and then the next one you're going to be on a serve team.
So that's all staff.
All staff as well.
So you expect, what does serve one look like for all staff?
So they're going to serve in their area. We also have like when we have a major ministry event, it's the same thing. They're going to serve in their area when they're working. So they're going to, the kids person is going to be in kids.
Right.
I'm going to be all over the place. I'm a bad example. The worship leader though is a great one that people sometimes is hard to require that of, but he comes off the stage and he joins his wife on the front row. And is part of the worship experience. And then he knows at a certain point on the clock, he's going to go back and get ready to go back on and lead worship to close it down. But that's an important thing we've put in with our staff, and we expect it of our staff. We have a huge event Friday night. It's only one experience. It's called Girls Night Out, but in the fall, we do a women's event launch, and in the spring, we do a men's event launch, and it's our women's event. And I'm over that with the ministry teams, but every person in this building will be in a seat during that experience. Those events make it easier because we just make all the men do all the hard stuff while we're in there. But and vice versa in January for the men's event. But yeah, we say we worship with one eye open, but we are part of the experience, and we're getting fed as well to protect the spiritual health of our staff.
So what does the serve one look like for, like, say somebody like you on the executive team?
So on the executive team, I'm checking in with all the teams. So and then with our youth pastor, obviously we have youth on Wednesday nights. We don't have a separate youth program on Sundays. He's actually checking on we are encouraging youth to join dream teams because they don't have a separate worship experience. They sit in the main experience. So he's checking in on his youth that are serving, and then really focusing on connecting with new youth first-time guests in the lobby outside of the experience.
All
Got it.
staff Sunday through Thursday employees.
Our staff Sunday through Thursday employees, all
Yes,
staff?
we our office hours are really Sunday through Thursday. We treat Sunday like a work day. Friday and Saturday are non-open days, for lack of a better way to describe it. And then we offer, just on the staff structure side, we let our staff flex. Like, a lot of special events in ministry happen on Fridays and Friday evenings. So when we have those kinds of things, we want our staff afterwards to make sure they get extra Sabbath time the next week. That kind of thing. We talk about flex time a lot. So if you're here all day Friday for our big event Friday night, we want to make sure that you are getting a full Sabbath. That might mean Saturday you're cleaning up for Sunday. So Monday, take some time for yourself.
Well, maybe one of the last questions here, Candice. You've been great. Appreciate your generosity of time, man. Did you, going back, a handful of years, and still to this day, going back, not current day, because all of your staff would have gone through the servant leadership training. But going back, did you invite all of your team to go through the different, from serve, lead, coach, all the way up to direct, to learn a lot of those core competencies and characteristics? What was that journey like of onboarding existing staff? Is that clear?
Staff or volunteers? Staff,
yeah. Did they go through?
Yeah, whole staff in the room. Whole staff did not get it on the same level. So whole staff didn't engage at the same rate, and that's okay. But what I find is, if you get your whole staff in the room for the initial teaching and the initial onboarding of it all, you're going to see somebody's really great at instructional leadership, like classroom style training, huddles, those kinds of things. Somebody's naturally really great at ICNU and recruiting. So like, when you break up that process, it's just like looking at your staff and saying, I need enough introverts and extroverts to balance it out, and I need a balance of spiritual giftings. It's the same thing with our onboarding process. Like, we've got people that are just better at different points, and we want them all to understand who's better at what. Like, we know our youth pastor. If you want to recruit somebody, I'm gonna go get Pastor Alex, and I'm gonna have him on them, because they'll be serving. Like, his first Sunday, he has them serving, like observing at youth that week. That's like not a thing for me, but I know he can do it. So if I put him on it, it's gonna happen. And leverage, you learn to leverage the team by making everybody a part of the process.
Cool. Did Randy, what was the other question?
And volunteers, so you have members of a church for 30 years, you're implementing a new leadership structure and content. Do you make them go through all that too?
If they're going to serve, they've been a longtime member, or they went through Dream Team training, and
They've already been, let's say they've already been a leader. Is that what
or
you're
even
saying?
already been a leader.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that journey like to bring them kind of up to speed to the new way of freedom?
Again, start small. So the people who have been there longer, who have more ownership because they've been serving a lot, you want to honor that. So sometimes some meetings were one-on-one, and really inviting them in to be a leader. So I would look at your team, if you're looking at implementing this and you have people who have been around a while, and those people are the people, I'm meeting with you first because I need your partnership in going forward with this. And that's a way that I think sometimes we miss the boat. We have like a big meeting, and we'll even serve food and make it fun, but then somebody comes in and gets whiplash. So take those people that are your key people, your go-to people, and meet with them first and ask them to lead the charge for you, and let them be owners in it. So that, I don't think it's rude to choose a rollout plan that's going to allow some early ownership from your key people.
Cool.
Also, be okay with the fact that sometimes not everybody is into that. Like, somebody might choose to step away or change roles because there's change happening. And we know that 67% of the population from DISC is steady. So you've got to walk into that knowing that there might be some people uncomfortable with the change, and it's okay to talk about the elephant in the room. I know from some staffers, like they were really uncomfortable saying like, hey, I've heard you're not sure about this, and I want to talk to you about it and allow you to ask about your concerns. Sometimes we avoid those conversations, and everything about healthy feedback starts to go into that, and honestly, biblical conflict. Like you've got to have those conversations so that you can move forward with everybody on the same team.
Cool. Last questions? We're good. Can I pray for you, Candice? Anything specific in your world right now to pray for?
We have a massive women's event on Friday, and it's largely been for the church population, but I don't know what you guys are experiencing. I'm praying for this for you, but 40% of our registrants have never been in church before, and I've never seen anything like that. So it's a cool ministry opportunity. So we'll take all the prayers.
Amen. Lord Jesus, thank you for how you've gifted Candice, for her passion, her spirit, her wisdom, and the way you place your spirit in her life in a powerful way. We do lift up all that you're doing at Freedom. We lift up your One Holy Christian Apostolic Church. Everywhere the name of Jesus is being proclaimed, Lord Jesus, the fields are ripe unto the harvest, so send out workers to proclaim your name, and especially with the women's event coming up. Many women who we think don't follow you, don't know you, don't bend the knee to you. May your spirit fall upon them. May many baptisms be what is the outgrowth of that event, meeting that felt need for community. And we just pray that Freedom's impact would just multiply to many people. The days are short, Lord Jesus. And we thank you for technology that has allowed us to glean and learn and develop wisdom that's come from your servant, Candice. Bless her and her family. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right.
Thank you.
Bless you, buddy. Yeah. Woo! We'll see you next time.
Yeah, y'all got this. Y'all got this. I'll see you soon.
Thanks, Candice. Bye.